Hello, everyone. Paul Elam here with a Voice for Men, and Dr. Tara Palmatier with a Shrink for Men for our show Going Mental. Dr. T, would you like to say hi to everybody?
Hi, everybody.
There, she has said hi, and I'm saying hi again. Look, what we're going to talk about today, and I think probably most of at least the men in this audience know this old joke. Have you ever woken up next to somebody after a night of drinking and looked across from you and there was somebody that was so ugly that you chewed your arm off so that you could get out of bed without waking her? And it's called Coyote Ugly. Well, today we're going to be talking about Coyote Crazy. And Coyote Crazy usually isn't a product of one night of drinking, although it can be. Coyote Crazy is after a period of time when you wake up next to the person that you've been spending the night with for some time, and it dawns on you that you're with a lunatic. And this can happen all at once. It can be a progression, but what we usually find is that over a period of time, that this type of particular partner becomes more and more controlling, more demanding, more insane with their requests, and unsatisfied with anything that's given them. And they also have a habit of becoming dangerous, especially when hearing the word no. The question becomes then, once you're in that point where you recognize that you are with somebody that's crazy and dangerous and abusive and destructive, and the future is looking more and more bleak, how do you get rid of them without resorting to duct tape, plastic bags, and shovels? And there is ways to do that, although it's not as simple as just saying goodbye. So we're going to have a conversation about this, hopefully offer some ideas. I want to start out with sort of an understanding of the dynamics of how men get into this position, how they go from being with a woman that they think is like really nice and special and makes them feel fulfilled, to one day they wake up and the person next to them, they can just see the little horns, the little spikes growing out of their head. And their behavior is starting to take on the characteristics of somebody that's not a loving partner, but of a control freak that is willing to damage them at any turn, and has done so at this point many times, in order to get their way and to have control. So let's start, Dr. T, if you would, with the earlier parts of a relationship, because as we've already established in other talks about this, crazy was already there. Crazy was there from the very, very beginning, but these guys didn't notice that crazy was there. Now, how does that happen? How do guys have a lunatic and not know she's a lunatic until it's too late?
Well, you know, oftentimes these women have crafted a false persona, a mask that they wear that appears normal. Abusive personalities are often described as Jekyll and Hyde, meaning they can seem perfectly lovely, charming one minute, and then you go behind closed doors and the monster comes out. The higher functioning ones and higher functioning in terms of personality disorders or personality disorder traits or abusive personalities doesn't mean that they're better or less crazy or dangerous. What it means is that they're better at masking the crazy, which actually makes them more dangerous. And a lot of these women, whether it's conscious or not, they're able to keep that mask on until after either the wedding or they conceive a child, because they know that that is the glue that can keep a man stuck to them. Yes, that makes sense. And, but I would say quite a number of the men I work with and men who participate on Shrink for Men, they did see the signs early on, but because they had developed feelings for the woman, or she was really hot, or the sex was really good, or she was playing the pity card, oh, woe is me, I had such a bad childhood, and they felt sorry for her. They either ignored the warning signs or made excuses for them or rationalized them. Well, you know, she's had it rough and her last boyfriend was so mean and abusive. You know, she just needs time to be loved and treated like the wonderful person she is, and everything will be peachy keen. And of course that doesn't happen. So I think I think that answers your question, how this happens. Oh, also I would like to add that a lot of the men I work with in particular were raised in families in which one or both parents had these issues. So even if the crazy is showing, they're used to it, or it seems normal, or they think that's just how women are.
Yeah, and I think that when we discussed before how to spot this stuff early in relationships, I think it was on our last episode of this, that we discussed how there's a sort of a synergy between Crazy's ability to mask herself and to hide her true nature early in the relationship, and the fact that all human beings, men included, are prone to only seeing the best in people when they're during the infatuation stage. They're prone to ignoring possible warning signs and red flags that pop up, and they're prone to rationalize and excuse stuff that they wouldn't 3 years into a relationship, that the same behavior years later would seem abusive to them when it might just seem like a mistake or her having a bad moment early in the relationship. Mm-hmm. But the question becomes, again, how to get rid of these people, because this is not, some guys might say that, oh, well, it's simple, you just pack her bags and throw her out. It's not always that simple. Well, we have to remember a couple of things. One, sometimes we're talking about finding out crazy is crazy, or finally letting it sink in after there are children in the relationships. We're talking about finding out that a woman is crazy after there are shared financial investments, after there is shared in community property, which community property is a code word for her shit in most states after you break up or get a divorce. So let's be real about that. So it is a self-protective measure. It's not just protecting yourself from the abuse that's happening in the relationship, but it is protecting yourself from the abuse that is going to happen when you say goodbye to her. One more time, guys. When you get rid of somebody that's crazy, of a crazy woman, somebody with a personality disorder, somebody that's naturally high conflict, and I agree with Dr. T, we don't need to get into diagnostics and all this other crap. If she's abusive and high conflict and prone to crazy behavior, then that's all you need to know. But when you're getting rid of that person, whatever vulnerability that you have in your life that she has access to exploiting, that's exactly what she's going to do. So I'm going to argue from a beginning perspective that when you're going to get rid of an individual like this, get them out of your life, and that's what I mean, Futrell, by getting rid of somebody, just so you know, getting them out of your life, you must start with preparation and with sealing up your vulnerabilities. You must start with ideas like always be recording, gathering evidence, and since I know that Dr. T worked with a number of cases where this has paid off for men, I'm going to let her talk a little bit about that. What should men do in the beginning phases when they start getting it in their head, okay, I got to get away from her, but I don't want to lose my house and my ass and my assets in the process?
Well, first let me say what men should not do. Do not tell her that you think she's crazy or might have borderline.
I'm sorry, Dr. T. I'm sorry. Could you say that one more time? I didn't hear you.
Do not tell her that you think she's crazy and are planning to leave. Do not tell her you suspect she might have borderline personality disorder or histrionic personality disorder or narcissistic personality disorder, or that you think she might be a sociopath. Do not do that, okay? A lot of guys think, oh gosh, yeah, I've read Walking on Eggshells, this is her. And finally, I know what it is, and I can tell her, and we'll get help, and then things will be great. No. 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 When has she ever taken responsibility or ownership for the horrible things she's done to you and others? And I'm sorry, but it's really your fault, isn't taking ownership. Do not tell her. It will. she does not want to hear it. Best case scenario, she ends up flipping it around and accusing you of being the one who has a personality disorder or a sociopath. But you do not tell her. You just don't.
And let's add to that, if we can, guys. And again, I hope above all hopes that you are listening to what Dr. T is telling you right now. Not only is that a horribly stupid move to tell her that, you are also advertising to her that you are on to her. You have just given her every incentive to pull out all the stops. She knows she's busted. She knows that the game is over. She reads this shit a lot better than you do, buddy. She is much better at this game. Your job here is to learn, and you start by telling her nothing. Would you agree, Dr. T?
That is correct. Absolutely not. And even, and some of these women truly believe that they are the innocent parties here and that everything they do is justified and excused because he didn't respond to their 50th text message of the day quickly enough, or whatever the hell their beef is. It will backfire on you. I mean, maybe there is the rare occurrence where the person in question will be like, okay, I need help, and might get it, but more often than not, that just will not happen. The other thing you don't do is contact her family and tell them you think their daughter might have BPD or NPD or something. Crazy doesn't happen in a vacuum. And odds are some or many of her family members have similar issues. They know damn well who she is, and frankly, the day you married her was the day they rejoiced because you took a problem off their hands. Okay, they don't want to do an exchange or a refund or a return. They want her to continue to be your problem. Again, this is not in every case. I've had some clients whose in-laws were actually helpful and very, sorry for the pain and damage their daughters have caused, but they're the exception and not the rule. If you have, if you have kids, first of all, there's what you can do if you don't have kids, and what you can do if you don't have children with this type of person. It will make your life much easier, right? If there's shared assets, yeah, that will be painful. She'll want everything and you to have nothing. But if she doesn't have any hostages in the form of children, it will make the getting out much easier. But first things first is safety. If she has ever made threats to call the police on you and make false allegations of abuse or any kind of violence, you must begin recording her when she's on the attack, and have that recorder on your person at all times. And find out if you live in a one-party or a two-party state. We've discussed this before. A one-party state means it's legal for you to tape any conversation, telephone call, as long as you are part of the conversation. In a two-party state, both parties have to be aware that you're recording, but you know what? Pay the fine. Pay the fine. It could be the thing that keeps you out of jail. And if you have a good attorney, they can argue that for you. Second of all, if this is a marriage and you will need to find an attorney, again, do this quietly. Do not let on. Create a separate email account and use it on a device that she has never had access to. Oftentimes, Crazy will employ things like keyloggers, spyware, and hack into your email accounts, even your business ones, even your Facebook accounts. You know, oftentimes crazy has a huge fear of abandonment. And let's just be clear, you can't abandon an adult, you leave an adult, but crazy fears abandonment, and she will spy on you, she will hack into your accounts to see if you're up to anything, including leaving her. So if you are going to be divorcing and getting legal advice, you must get, buy a cheap tablet, buy a separate pay-as-you-go phone, do not bring it home, keep it at work, and use that for all of your say goodbye to crazy correspondence. If you're surfing at home on websites about, I think my wife is controlling and divorce, again, don't do that there. She can find your search history. You need to do this for your safety. The longer you can keep her in the dark about what you're planning to do, the better. Do a search for attorneys who have experience with high conflict cases. And if an attorney glibly says to you, oh, all divorces are high conflict, fuck him, fuck her, keep looking. There's typical garden variety divorce bitterness, which will eventually pass, and then there's crazy divorce bitterness. And sometimes these people carry their anger and hatred to their graves, over something that could have happened 40 years ago. And you need an attorney who has experience in dealing with such cases. Same thing goes for custody. You might want to start looking in advance for therapists who, as we discussed last week with Tom Golden, who was our guest, you need to find therapists who have experience and know how to treat parental alienation. More often than not, when you leave, that's it. War is declared. I think what this has to do with is, when you are getting ready to end a relationship with someone like this, it triggers one of their 5 basic fears, which are the fear of abandonment, the fear of loss of control, the fear of fearing or feeling inferior or inadequate, the fear of loss of resources, whether that's money, attention, social status, whatever her currency is, and the fear of public exposure for what she's really like. And divorcing or breaking up with someone like this is going to activate all of those fears. And because crazy often judges others by her own twisted yardstick, she figures, well, if I would lie about him and tell everybody he was an abusive monster, he's probably going to do the same thing to me. So you can expect there's probably going to be smear campaigns, character assassinations, emptying of the accounts. Speak with an attorney about what you can do to protect your assets in your particular state. In some states you can divide, take half the money and put it in a separate account. Other states you can't. You need to know all of this. Let's see. Do not tell any mutual friends who you think might tip her off. Really, I can't stress it enough. Secrecy in the early stages of preparing to do this is incredibly important. And that also means if you usually walk around the house feeling timid and shy and tiptoeing on eggshells, don't all of a sudden start walking around the house with a bounce in your step, even if you say nothing. As I said earlier, crazy is always hyper vigilant that she might be abandoned at any moment or that something has changed. And if she notices that, gosh, you seem relieved or happy, she will become suspicious. Because oftentimes once a man makes the choice, okay, I'm going to end this, he will, frequently feel a sense of relief, and it will show. So if you walk around miserable, grumpy, and unhappy most of the time because of how she's treating you, keep up those appearances. You do not want to alert her that anything has changed.
I want to touch on a couple of points again that you brought up, Dr. T. One, just to reiterate, anytime an attorney tells you that all divorces are high conflict, what that really is, it's an attorney telling you every divorce that I get my hands on is high conflict, because that's where I make my money. And all that is pre-sell to sort of warm you up and butter you up, to break out the wallet and to drain yourself into his or her pocket and Many of you guys that have been through a divorce already know this, and you're hearing it after the fact, which I deeply regret. The other thing I want to do is go back to the beginning, because I don't think we can stress this enough, and for the life of me, I have the hardest time getting this through to some men. Guys, it's one thing if you marry somebody or get hooked up with somebody who is conditioned by the culture to be a little bit immature and feeling special, and the process of a mature relationship will help them grow out of that and obtain more realistic expectations. There are people you can work with like that. There's a difference between somebody who may have this sort of childish little princess type expectations of a relationship when they're in their late teens, early 20s, and somebody who's, you know, pushing 40 and still looking for Prince Charming to come fix all of her problems. But when it comes to people that are honestly personality disorders, that are by nature high conflict, get it, guys, you're not going to fix them. And any attempt you make to play fucking therapist, to manage their personality, to make them better, it's going to end up lodged in a very uncomfortable place for you. They are on to this. You have to understand that these women are crazy, but they are far from stupid. They are far from stupid in most cases. They have a very keen sense, a very keen emotional acumen. They can sense when somebody's on to them and trying to manipulate through their problems. When Dr. T talked about don't start walking through the house like you've suddenly found a new life, because she'll read that. They read emotions particularly well, because that is how they survive, is by exploiting, understanding, manipulating emotions. Your job in this situation is to be dead on unreadable as possible. Even continuing some of your anger or your normal daily anger at her is probably a good idea while you're going through this process. You don't want to be read as having had some sort of internal change. She will pick up on that. It will trigger all those 5 fears that Dr. T was talking about, and she'll be going from there. This is a pretty dangerous situation with people that are truly borderline, truly narcissistic. They're some of the most dangerous people out there. We're talking about anybody from someone that's willing to accuse you of sexually molesting your children to somebody like Jodi Arias, who is willing to stab you 57 times and put a bullet in your head in the shower. That's how serious this stuff is that we're talking about. So get it from the beginning. If you determine that this person really is an abusive, dangerous person, your only job is to get out intact. You don't have the job of managing them or trying to counsel them to get better. And I have seen far too many men sit there and bargain with themselves like lunatics, like absolute lunatics. Well, maybe if I do this, maybe if I do that. I've seen guys do that 7, 8, 9 years after the divorce. Maybe if I do this for her or that for her, she'll be okay. Get it, guys. It ain't going to get okay with this kind of person. It'll never be okay. And as long as you refuse to accept that, you are insisting on maintaining your own vulnerability to whatever she wants to do to you, and it's just not necessary. Let's move on and talk a little bit more about direct jacking. When we talk about recording everything, get a separate tablet, laptop, something you know that she has not installed keystroke software on that can follow everything you do. It's that serious. Yes, you must go in a clandestine mode and keep everything you do secret, all your communications, a separate throwaway cell phone that you can communicate with attorneys. Don't tell any of your friends. Keep it quiet from everybody. You can tell them all about it after it's done. You can share with people. But while you're protecting yourself, go into secret mode. Do everything, especially electronically, in secret, and record everything, even if it's not legal. I'm going to say it, and people are going to say Paul's advocating illegal activity. If it's not legal to record in your state, then your attorney won't use it. but it is not going to kill you or hurt you to have it on record for yourself. Just be careful. And again, like
or to play for the cops if she calls them on you, you know.
Absolutely. And at that point, hopefully, if you're a little bit lucky, the cops will hear the recording and maybe look the other way about whatever laws there are about recording.
Or maybe even haul her away in cuffs. And I have had cases where that has happened. Not all cops are mindless VAWA drones.
That's true. And so while it may be somewhat of a risk, it is a risk I would be willing to take if it meant having to stand in front of a bunch of cops after she's put a couple of scratches on her face and has tears running down her cheeks pointing at you, because if you don't have anything to defend yourself, you are going to jail. And then she will have the domestic violence claim on you, which will come into your divorce case or whatever division of property there is, and you'll be even more screwed. What's next, Dr. T, after they've made sure that everything's being recorded, that they've secured legal strategy, that they are hopefully not, I'm sorry, dumb enough to try to play therapist with her, to try to fix her up or to do anything like that? Where do we go next in terms of getting her out or getting themselves away from her in a safe way?
Sure. Again, I'm going to talk about mistakes, common mistakes that a lot of the guys I've worked with have made prior to working with me. One of the biggest regrets many of the guys I've worked with have is that when they had the opportunity to press charges against Crazy, because as I said, some cops, well, they don't care if she's the one who's throwing things, making assaults, they will arrest her. A lot of the guys, no, I don't want her to have a record. And it's just like, no, no, fuck her, because she would not hesitate to do the same to you. If you have the opportunity to have her arrested, not for no reason, for assaulting you, doesn't matter if you weren't seriously hurt, it's still a crime, arrest her. Even if she is the mother of your children, arrest her. Arrest her, because you know what? She will be plotting the moment the cops drive away. She'll be sitting there, sucker, and figuring out when she can turn the tables on you and have you arrested. I have seen it happen time and again. If you have the opportunity to press charges against her, again, for assaulting you or engaging in some other criminal activity, just do it. Get over your chivalry, your chivalric impulses, and just do it.
Let me put this a different way.
Okay.
Here, guys, if you're in a situation where you have a wife that is hitting you, throwing ashtrays at your head, screaming at you threats, clawing at you, cutting at you, whatever, and you call the police to defend yourself, and they come out there and they see that she's in fact attacked you, and they're talking about making an arrest, the guy that runs up and says, oh no, please don't arrest her, don't put her in jail, I'm not going to call that chivalry. I'm not even going to call you a white knight. I'll call you a fucking moron for doing that. If you have an abusive person in your life and you have any plans on getting away from her, rescuing her is not a part of the picture. Rescuing her from her behavior is not a part of the picture. Put her in jail. Lock her up. Bring that to your lawyer. Here, yes. She's been arrested for domestic violence. Here's more evidence for my divorce case.
I correspond with an attorney from time to time who used to be married to a woman who was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. And I'll paraphrase here, but he said, he sees this happen a lot with his clients where they still want to protect her from herself. He's like, when you get a BPD on the ground, and this is figuratively, nobody is advocating that you actually knock them onto the ground, but when you get one of these people on the ground, you don't offer her a hand to help her back up. You drive the proverbial stake through her heart so she can't get back up and come after you again like a zombie to feast upon you. The other thing this attorney gave, which it ties into ABR, always be recording, is Don't just start the recording when she begins one of her rage outs or assaults. Have a voice activated one, because you want the judge or the custody evaluator or the cops to hear that things were fine. Hey, can you pass the salt? Fuck you! You don't like my cooking? You want to put salt in my food? Here, wear the food. You want anybody who's going to be evaluating your case, because what some of these women will claim was, well, he was provoking me and baiting me and threatening to hit me, and then he turned on the recorder once I lost my temper. You want whoever is going to be evaluating your case, whether it's law enforcement or a psychologist or a CPS, to hear that she can go from 0 to 100 miles an hour like that. So get that on tape if you can.
Just in case she's been, watching instruction videos on how to get you put in jail, there is a comment here, Dr. T, that I just want to briefly put up for the viewer's sake, and just to just throw a little hint at everybody's way. So if you're watching this, you can read that now, or if by chance you are visually impaired, the comment has come up, you can still do transcripts when you have recordings. So let's keep that in mind too. And that was thank you for that comment, by the way, that was a great one.
Yes.
To remind people that document, find a way to document, be creative, think of different ways to document.
Right.
Nobody's going to take care of you but you in this situation.
Exactly.
Not your friends, not your family, sure as hell not her, not the police, not the courts, not even your attorney. The first thing you've got to do is understand that you're responsible for gathering evidence, for putting all this together, for being in charge of your case. If you do anything else, it's a serious mistake.
I'll give you another mistake. Do not make the mistake of thinking that being a nice guy is going to win you any points with Crazy once you have decided to leave her. I have gentlemen I have worked with who their first settlement offer was extraordinarily generous. You don't get points for that. They've had extraordinarily generous offers rejected out of hand. What you really need to come to terms with is that you are not dealing with someone who is operating with any formal sense of logic that you might recognize, nor does she have a moral compass like you probably have. She does not have a sense of right and wrong. Well, she does, as applied to other people, but she doesn't think anything.
She's right and you're wrong.
Yeah, or she'll admit, yeah, well, what I did was maybe not nice, but you deserved it. She can tell you when you're wrong, of course, but anything she does is justified in her mind. There is no sense of fair play. There is no reaching her, reasoning with her. There is no decency to appeal to. You're not dealing with someone who is going to play by the same rules you are. And now I'm not saying break the rules yourself or break laws or be an aggressive dickhead, but you got to stop being a doormat. And if you haven't figured out how to get boundaries for yourself, then find an attorney who can do that for you while you start working on boundaries. Because I tell you what, if you do share kids, you are going to have to learn how to put boundaries in place, because they don't go away. Well, some do. Some will just cut you off and try to take your kids and not look back. But
another great comment here, Dr. T, that I'm going to put up right now that really puts it very succinctly.
Oh, perfect. Yes.
Don't assume that she has your values. She does not have your values.
No.
Your values to her are what she considers an opportunity to exploit. That's what your values are.
Kindness and decency are perceived as weaknesses and vulnerabilities to exploit. And she's been doing it to you since day one, especially if your relationship developed with her playing the pity card. Feel sorry for me. I've had such a hard life. My parents were abusive. My last boyfriend was abusive. When somebody leads with the pity card, they are just looking to manipulate you, okay? And feeling sorry for her, well, she can't help being this way, is not you taking care of yourself, okay? It just isn't, and that is another mistake that a lot of guys I work with make is that they project their values onto her. They think, oh, she's angry, she's upset when she calms down. She's not going to calm down, especially now that it's over. You have, in her mind, that is a rejection. That is a huge narcissistic injury, okay? And because oftentimes people with these issues are incredibly psychologically and emotionally immature, what that means is that they do not have the capacity to go through a healthy grieving process like most adults do. They don't get past the anger stage. They don't get past the bargaining stage, and they cycle through that. And because they can't fully mourn the loss, in order to not feel the pain of the loss, they have to hate you. They have to vilify you. They have to paint you black. And in this instance, once you go black, there is no going back. You are going to remain the villain for the rest of your days, no matter how kind, no matter how generous you are. So don't
owe her.
Oh, yes.
Everything you have, and it still won't be enough. Going back to that joke about generous offers to crazy. Listen, guys, in her mind, everything that you have belongs to her. She is owed it, and more. She would go past you and take it from your extended family if the law would allow her. She would.
In some states it does. If parents, I believe this is in the great state of New Jersey yet again, which is like the seventh ring of hell for men who are getting divorced from crazy. If your parents helped you during the marriage, then family court expects your parents to keep on helping her.
Hello? We reaching anybody here? Knock, 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 knock. Any? Okay. Just want to make sure, because here's the deal, and we're let's see, we're 37 minutes into this. We got a few minutes left, so I want to talk about something that I think is really, really important that's tied to this, because Dr. T, the biggest obstacle to me that I've seen that men have with this is themselves. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a huge obstacle with family law. There's a huge obstacle with gynocentric inclinations in the culture around them, in families, in the police force. I mean, I'm not denying any of that. But what I've seen time and time and time again, and it's heartbreaking, mm-hmm. is guys that simply can't get, okay, your enemy is your enemy, even if it has a vagina, even if you once loved it, even if it has long, pretty golden hair.
Even if she gave birth to children.
Your children. She's still an enemy, and I've seen guys saying, well, I just can't. Let me tell you where I think some of those guys end up, and I don't think this is too much of a stretch. I don't think it accounts for all of them. But when I see in the news some guy that snapped and has showed up somewhere and shot his ex-wife to death, or his current wife, some guy that has gone off the deep end and barricaded himself in an apartment with children, holding a gun, threatening to end it all for everybody. I do believe with all my heart that some of those cases are men that tried and tried and tried and tried and tried so far past the point of reason until they finally lost their minds. I really believe that happens, and I think that this type of man is not so different from a lot of the men that Dr. T has worked with, a lot of the men that we have that show up at A Voice for Men, and I don't mean that they're similar in terms that they've killed. I mean they're similar in terms that they have just lived with frustrations that people should learn not to live with, that they have tried to fix crazy for years and years and years, and continue to try until the point that their attempts are crazy. It doesn't surprise me that some men lose it and end up jumping off a bridge. I think this is part of our problem with suicide during divorce, and the problem with homicide during divorce. And listen, if you've got an enemy who's making your life miserable, and you guys know in your heart whether or not that she's going to become a threat when you say, I'm leaving. It is not going to be a surprise to you. All I can say is it's time. This isn't about binding your balls. I'm not accusing anybody's manhood of this or not having a spine. But it is time to find your sanity in this and your clear thinking. And you're looking at this in a way that gives you some rational possibilities for outcome in this. But the idea that you're going to please an insatiable narcissist into a peaceful life, guys, that's insane. It's crazy all by itself. It'll never happen, and it'll never work for you, and it never has. And sometimes it just ends up in a really bad divorce where you get cleaned out and you lose your home, you lose everything, you end up driving a 15-year-old car and living in a studio apartment, borrowing money from your parents in order to have food.
With children who've been taught to hate you.
Yes, with children that have been taught to hate you, or it can end up, as we've seen in the news sometimes, much worse. There's got to be ways for men to start spreading the word to each other, and most importantly to themselves, that self-preservation, that rationality, that making conscious, sometimes calculated and cold decisions during this type of process is perfectly appropriate, and in fact, it's the only sane thing to do.
Mm-hmm. I agree. You must gird your loins and cut away any emotional attachment you have to this person. Any sense of, well, she wasn't bad all the time, and maybe if I just, no, you have to go into self-preservation mode. Again, I don't mean be an abusive jerk like her, but you don't have to make it easy for her to hurt you. You don't have to be the little obedient lamb who walks up to the sacrificial altar with a little perforated line sketched on your neck. Don't do it. And that's what hoping for or expecting her to be decent and have integrity is going to do. Look, if she didn't have those qualities during your marriage, she's not going to have them during the divorce. It's going to get worse, because once you leave, as I said, however you want to frame it, whether it's because she can't go through a successful mourning process, or you know too much and therefore must be destroyed, she's going to take her pound of flesh and then some. But you don't have to serve it up for her. You need to protect yourself. You need to protect your kids to the best of your ability, and that means protecting yourself. Because if she decimates you, you are most likely the only shot at developing into reasonably healthy, functioning adults that your kids have. So if you can't do it for yourself, do it for your kids if you have them.
I want to touch on that for a second too. And again, this is not, and sometimes I know that I'm a little bit hard on the guys here, and it's only because I see that self-accountability and responsibility is ultimately freedom, and it's ultimately empowerment. So I put the onus on men. If you're concerned, I've heard men for years talk about, oh, the children, and if I go to war with her in court, it'll hurt the children. If you don't go to war with her, in many cases, you're hurting your children. If you allow alienation to happen without a fight, how much have you protected your children? There are some guys, and certainly not all of them, but there are some guys that are so afraid of the disapproval and loss of love that comes with a fight in a relationship that they actually hide behind, I'm protecting my kids, because they don't want to get into the really difficult aspects of going to war with a crazy person. And I issue that as a challenge. You're not protecting your children when they're in the hands of a crazy person that is telling them that you're evil and have been abusive to her and to hate you. How on earth is protecting her protecting your children? How do you figure out in your head that that is a rational justification? The reason you do that is because you're protecting yourself. You're protecting yourself from fighting with her. You're protecting yourself from the loss of love. You're protecting yourself from whatever battle you don't want to be in. But you are not protecting your children when you enable their abuser. Please don't give me that crap. It's not fair and it's not right. Children do need one sane parent. And in a case where you have a female narcissist and borderline, the only hope is the father. It's the only hope there that they have for any kind of adjusted life. And it's a hell of a place to be. I feel for any guy in that situation. I really do. I mean, my heart pours for you. But it's still on you to make it happen. It's on you to protect those kids and to do everything you can to get custody and to do everything you can to make sure that they know that they have an active, involved father that loves them and that what their mother is telling them is lies. And you can do it now, or you can just say, well, it's better for me to be quiet and wait. And then so many years later, you can end up where so many men have, estranged and hated, and would damage children for it. But again, that's a matter of choice.
Yeah, and while we're on the topic of children, you know, sometimes you can't save the kids and you can't protect them, and some kids will gladly take on the armor of being mommy's little foot soldier. Okay, it's what alienation does is it gives children adult power that they shouldn't have, which is you can disrespect your father and mommy will reward you for it. And also, if they have been paying attention to how your wife treats you, they don't want to be on the receiving end of that. So they follow mom's biddings. And if it's getting to the point where your children are being as disrespectful and abusive to you as their mother, you got to do what you got to do, but I don't think you should sacrifice yourself or your well-being. You know, the kids might snap out of it at some age. They might, if you can get them into therapy, but do not do things that are stupid and ill-advised for your emotional and financial and physical well-being, because the kids are, you know, encouraging or demanding that you do so at the behest of their mother. Because let's say worst case scenario, these kids never come back to you. Well, you know what? Your life isn't over. You can heal. You can go on. Of course, it will be a hurt that you will carry with you, but it does not have to be the end of your life, and you do not have to make yourself a human sacrifice. I have seen some men do that, and the children never come around, and they are left broken and empty when they should have told their kids. I mean, and these kids were adolescent, early adults, to either shape the F up or ship the F out, and they don't.
Some sad realities, but you know, unfortunately, sometimes men who say nobody respects me should not be surprised. You can respect yourself and eventually earn the respect of people who count. And sometimes things are just a write-off. I mean, I don't think either Dr. T or I or either one sitting here pretending like any of this is easy and any of this is guaranteed to turn out well for you. Certainly just the opposite. Crazy is crazy, and they can do damage, and there's nothing anybody can do to stop a lot of it. There's no
oftentimes they're like suicide bombers. They'll strap the bombs right to their chest, and if they have to blow themselves up in the process to make you hurt, they will do it. Same goes for the kids.
So I definitely feel for anybody in that position, but I also feel that they should look for ways to fight and find ways to fight, because the only way you're going to get crazy out of your life is to get crazy out of your life. It doesn't happen any other way. There is no.
And the other mistake, thank you, you just reminded me, is don't make the mistake of thinking you can appease crazy. Appeasing crazy does not work. I read it either on the forum or a Voice for Men in the comment section, and I can't remember where. somebody quoted Winston Churchill. I will paraphrase. Appeasement is like feeding a crocodile and hoping it will eat you last. It doesn't work. If you think appeasement works, just, ask Poland circa 1939. It doesn't work. It doesn't. And all it's going to do is she'll take advantage.
Yes, history is full of examples of appeasement of all kinds. And ask yourself this: if you're in a relationship with crazy, you already have the answers right in front of you. Because if you are like most men who have, out of a sense of honor and love, have worked hard to try to keep their relationships intact, you have appeased and appeased and appeased and appeased. Let me ask you, what has it gotten you? And you know the answer to that one. I see we're just about at the end of our time for the day, Dr. T.
Okay.
Do you have any last thoughts before we sign off and start planning for the next round of Going Mental?
I think there's so much. I'm certain we've left things out. I mean, this is, extracting yourself from one of these relationships. There are so many moving parts, and of course, every case is unique. Protect yourself. If you have reasons to consult a lawyer, do it. Record. Just you've got to go into self-preservation mode. Putting her first has not worked for you, and it's certainly not going to work when you're trying to leave her. You have to start putting yourself first.
I couldn't agree more. I've got a couple of closing thoughts, although I am going to let the good people from Men's Rights Edmonton, one of my favorite groups, do the speaking for me on the first part of what I have to say. I hope that people can burn that one into their minds if you're in that situation.
Never give in. Never, never, never give in. In case anybody is listening to an audio file of this, that's what the screen reads.
Yes, never give in and never give up. You've got to be worth it. If you have children, I know they're certainly worth it.
Give up on crazy. Do not
Yes.
give up on yourself.
And that is one way of looking at it that I was going to try to bring into my final thoughts here. You are fighting with crazy. The best advice that I could give everybody is to acknowledge that you lost. Give up. Crazy wins. She's crazy, and all you can do at this point is get out of the ring in the smartest way possible.
Actually, you win. You win when you give up on crazy. Giving up on crazy is not a loss. It doesn't mean you failed. Look, highly seasoned psychiatrists couldn't fix crazy. You not being able to do so is not a failure. It's like trying to change a Pekingese into a lion. You can't do it. So it's not, you can't fail at something that was never a possibility of achieving in the first place. So put the thought of I have failed out of your mind. You didn't have a chance to begin with, therefore it's no failure. Cutting your losses and getting out is a victory for you.
It is a big one. Oop, there we go. B for victory. Okay, I want to thank everybody. Thank you, Dr. T, for joining me today again, and thank you everybody in the audience for your comments and for the support that you've been giving this program, which has been great. I want to remind everybody that tomorrow, and the announcement will be coming out at avoiceformen.com, is the next installment of Mainstream Media Monthly with the one and only Dr. Warren Farrell, Tom Golden, and myself. And tomorrow we are going to be talking about young men who often remain at home and don't complete school and may obsess on video games and may not be gainfully employed, and how now the culture has taken to calling this phenomena failure to launch. And we're going to investigate a little bit about what that really means. Are these men failing, or is the culture failing them? We're going to examine that in detail tomorrow evening. Also Friday, we are targeting, I can't promise yet, it's not written in stone, but We're going to try to make it happen. I'm going to have a special interview hangout with the one and only Judgy Bitch from the Judgy Bitch blog. Very much looking forward to speaking with her and to doing that interview. I know you guys will like it. She has a lot of fans at A Voice for Men and a lot of fans that aren't at A Voice for Men. Very interesting person to speak with. Also want to remind everybody, I've been looking at the names of the people who are purchasing tickets for the conference in June, the 26th, 27th, and 28th. And not only is this lineup of speakers somewhat of a who's who in the men's movement, there is going to be a whole lot of people that you're familiar with. I'm not going to disclose names here because they came through a financial transaction. But what I will tell you is that there is going to be nearly as many people that are just very well known and very well established as activists and advocates in the men's community in the audience of this conference as there is going to be in the keynote speakers, which include myself and Dr. T, Dr. Miles Groth, and a number of other people. You definitely want to check out the banner at the top of avoiceformen.com. Click through there, get your ticket for the conference, get your other ticket for Dr. Warren Farrell's workshop on the 26th, which is about deepening your understanding and compassion for men and boys. And also, just a reminder to everybody, if you think you are or might be in an abusive relationship with someone, check out shrinkformen.com. If you want to know what Dr. T is about, you can read one of about 3 gazillion articles there that go into these issues, into her work with them. And if you do feel like you need some sort of counseling support online, coaching support online, please look at her links on her site for that, for her services. Also, if you are interested, just generally speaking, in the men's movement and changing the zeitgeist for men in addressing in different ways some of the issues that we've been talking about here today, please come to avoiceformen.com and start reading articles there. I think you'll find that if you liked this, you'll like either one of those sites. So with that, I'm going to wish you all a good day and say see you next week. Bye-bye now.
Bye.